Good afternoon and welcome to the second half of another exciting edition of Ancient of Days, coming to you live from beautiful downtown Crestline in the San Bernardino Mountains of Southern California's inland empire, where it's kind of trying to snow, but it seems to melt before it can hit the ground. Anyway, I know smoking's gonna kill me. It's too expensive. Hi, strontium. I listen. I've quit. I quit drinking. I quit various pills. Never had a problem. Coffee and cigarettes, totally different deal. Legal, easy to get, too expensive, I know, but they didn't used to be. That's quite a recent tax grab. That's all it is. They want their taxes. They don't want us to quit smoking. They want our money. I I am using hypnotism and various other things, and it ain't working. I have cut way down, but quitting, jeez. All right. We were talking about time, and it's rather appropriate that someone who was here at the wrong time interrupted us. Um, let's see if I can uh, get you an article about Counter Clock World by Philip K. Dick, another novel involving time. Yeah, I vape too when I must. I got this mainly because I had to fly to Denver and I thought I could just vape in the airport. Wrong. They don't let you do that either. And certainly not on the airplane. That I understand. The air is messed up enough without adding vaping to it. Hi, Michael. Um, let's see. Amazon, Goodreads, Wikipedia. Here's a book review on sfbook.com. If it'll ever load. Someday I'll have decent internet, but for now I'm stuck with what I've got. A review by Ant, A-N-T, Ant. I've heard that before, so it's someone who uses that handle, someone respected. Hi, Timothy. Hello, everybody. Wow. Anyway, Counter Clock World. In the first half, we talked about more to do with objects in our world not being what they seemed than it did with actual time. Counter Clock World is a world in which most people are living backward. They rise out of their graves, as in the predictions of the New Testament, is unstable. Come on. Come on. Ah. All right, can you hear me now? My internet connection is unstable and it disconnected me temporarily, which is why one reason why I decided to start earlier, but we got interrupted. I'm glad you liked the topic. All right, counterclock world. People rise out of the graves, much like the predictions in the New Testament that when Christ returns, people will rise from their graves. Definitely going through time loops. And they live backward. Uh, they eat backward. They put this stuff called sorghum into one end, and then food comes out of their mouths because it's backwards, it's counterclock. And eventually they get younger and younger and they become infants, and then they become embryos and they need to be implanted in a womb. So men use that as an excuse to have sex with pretty women. Okay, well, anyway, this here review says that Counterclock World is an expanded version of a story Phil wrote called Your Appointment Will Be Yesterday. And it uses the Big Crunch theory, which gets us back to the Big Bang, which I've tried to explain in my work in progress, the X in Exegesis. So let's see if I can get that open without the internet kicking me off. You see, the Big Bang Theory states that once upon a time there was nothing. If there isn't enough momentum, and there doesn't appear to be, eventually everything will collapse and become nothing again. The big crunch, the opposite of the big bang. Yes, Phil loved to deal with time. Oh, now my for free downloaded word processor wants to update. I told it no, absolutely not. Okay. In my discussion of Ubik and the logos and the Big Bang, the idea was that, as in Ubik, entropy takes over and everything gets cold. We call that the heat death of the universe. It's really the cold death. But the big crunch, that's if everything keeps expanding and never stops. Eventually, all the stars go out, all the into endlessly through an infinite space and never creating anything like energy or matter. Time's arrow, strontium, that sounds familiar. A book, Time's Arrow. Let's see if I can a novel by Martin Amis. It won a Booker Prize. Oh no, it didn't win. It was shortlisted in 1991. The doctor dies and then feels markedly better, breaks up with his lover as a prelude to seducing them, and mangles his patients before he sends them home. Oh, everything goes backwards. Okay, I've forgotten the guy's first name already. The author is Amis, A-M-I-S. Anyway, That's enough of Google. Um, in Phil's novel Counterclock World, the big crunch is happening, so time is going backward. However, modern theory with dark matter and dark energy suggests that the big crunch won't happen, but as the article says here, the universe could still see a big crunch unless scientists can figure out how this unproven dark energy really works. Well, I don't think figuring it out will affect what actually happens, but if you're in a Philip K. Dick world, yeah, what people think just might affect what really happens. Anyway, there's racial tension and religious intolerance in Counterclock World. It's a good study of those problems in society. Okay, so here we have some things backwards, like uneating food and starting a conversation with goodbye. This is the article. However, most things still move in a forward direction, including the conversations themselves, with the exception that people come to life in their graves and then become younger and younger until they are eventually put back in the womb and merge into their mother's bodies. These reborn people intermingle with those still on their first life and getting older, which provides an interesting mix. So imagine you haven't died, you can't come out of the grave. You still are living forward, and here's all these people living backward. So time apparently really is relative. A little lower in the article, as with PKD's usual style, science fiction elements are also underplayed when used are done to provide a that is now part of our past. It's set in 1998, published in 1966. As with most of his novels, the focus of Counterclock World isn't so much the destination, but the journey itself, a voyage of discovery that moves through religion, drugs, and paranoia. Okay, that's all that I find relevant to our topic of time. Now, Phil, as an Episcopalian and a friend of uh, Bishop James Pike, Phil was looking at, okay, um, okay, I don't want the New Living Translation. ESV Acts 7. Now, he claimed that he hadn't read all these things before his experience, but he must at least have heard sermons about them. Phil did a lot of claiming, oh, I couldn't possibly have known any Latin. Horse pucky. His classical music albums of oratorios and solemn masses and so forth had librettos with the Latin words that they were singing plus English translations. His Latin was clumsy, but he knew some. He knew about the Bible and all this stuff. I think it's Acts chapter 7. I'm looking. Control F. Here we go. Here we go. I'll just post the link to the English Standard Version, the ESV, of chapter 7 of Acts. And I'm looking at verse 54 and following. This is where they stoned Stephen. Now, when they heard these things, they were enraged. Stephen was preaching Jesus. They were enraged, and they ground their teeth at him. But he, that's Stephen, full of the Holy Spirit, gazed into heaven and saw the glory of God and Jesus standing at the right hand of God. And he said, "Behold, I see the heavens opened, and the Son of Man standing at the right hand of God." But they cried out with a loud voice and stopped their ears and rushed together at him. Then they cast him out of the city and stoned him. Skipping a little, while he was being stoned, Stephen called out, "Lord Jesus, receive my spirit." And falling to his knees, he cried out with a loud voice, "Lord, do not hold this sin against them." And when he had said this, he fell asleep. Asleep, not dead. Paul also talked about death as sleep. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, starting in verse 51. "Behold, I tell you a mystery." Phil used to quote this from memory. He had the New International Version, that English translation, but it's pretty much the same. "Behold, I tell you a sacred secret," Phil would say. Now here I'm reading, "Behold, I tell you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. For the trumpet will sound, and the dead will be raised imperishable, and we shall all be changed. For this perishable body must put on the imperishable," and so forth, immortality. And down to verse 56, "The sting of death is sin, and the power of sin is the law. But thanks be to God who Christ." Phil knew these verses. He could quote them without looking them up. The point is that, and you'll find this all over the New Testament, Jesus is already in heaven with God. He kind of is God. And the end of time is not the end of this world. Let me see if I can find where that is. I almost closed the page. Bad me. A new heavens and a new earth. Revelation chapter 21. I went and said that, didn't I? It's Revelation. No S on the end. Old habits die hard. Chapter 21 of Revelation. The point of time being somewhat illusory is that it's already here. The earth doesn't come to an end. John wrote or writes, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, and so on. Behold, and skipping down, behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God. And verse 5, and he who was seated on the throne said, behold, I am making all things new. Now, in Christian theology, and strontium cracks me up sometimes, the point of it is that this isn't in the future, it's already happened. And as Phil said, we're still in the first century AD under the domination and dominion of Rome, but we're also at the end of time. It's already here. But when we die, our souls don't rise up and go to heaven and live with God. God comes down and lives with us on the earth. In Jewish theology, the temple is where God comes down to earth. He sits on the mercy seat, which is, of course, the lid of the Ark of the Covenant. One of the reasons why there's such fervor in searching for the lost Ark of the Covenant. I don't think it's in Egypt. I don't think it's in Ethiopia. I don't know where it is. One tradition says that Jeremiah hid it in a cave in the mountains of the Holy Land. I don't know. See, Jeremiah was one of the few who managed to escape the Babylonian exile. He was broken out of jail and taken to Egypt along with some daughters of the king to preserve the royal line, and friends and fellow travelers. The End of Time is a bad Schwarzenegger movie from 1999, huh? Well, time might end. Time is the way we parse the relative motions between two or more objects. It's the way we make sense out of our lives. In a sense, time is entropy because we grow older, our machines wear out, the land is eroded, the water evaporates and falls from the sky as rain. I'm hearing something outside. Sounds like a bird, but I have a feeling it's actually a mountain lion. There is one that comes around from time to time. Scary. That's a mating call. It sounds almost like a woman screaming. Look it up on YouTube. You'll find the sound. Oh, hi, Sleepy Dave. Welcome, everyone. Yeah, I'm back. Talking about Counterclock World and time and the New Testament. You see, for the Christian who really understands Christian theology, the kingdom of heaven is already here. We don't see it, we don't seem to live in it, we're still persecuted and such. There's an awful lot of sin in this world. And I don't just mean having sex out of wedlock either. There's much worse things than that. There's people who curse God. They call themselves atheists, but when you really listen to them, it sounds more as if they're angry with God. Free your mind and your rear end will follow. The kingdom of God is within. Well, anyway, we don't have to go sit on a cloud and play the harp along with the angels, which really doesn't happen. We don't have to go live in the sky next to God's throne. Our job, as God told Adam and Eve in the first book of the Bible, Genesis, our job is to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and make the whole earth like the Garden of Eden. God made the Garden of Eden perfect, but the rest of the earth, we were supposed to perfect it. And we apparently disobeyed from the beginning. Oddly enough, Cain, who murdered his brother Abel, still worshiped God, gave his children names that contained El and other forms of our names for God. And actually, according to tradition, began the work of improving the land. Traditionally, he went to Egypt and built canals and got agriculture going there. We are supposed to tend the garden. And I recommend having at least a house plant if you can't have a garden. Mint grows easily and it's hard to kill even if you do have a brown thumb. And it's really happy in a windowsill or even down on the counter in the shade. And it smells nice and it's good for various recipes. Fresh mint leaves are awesome. Well, I don't know, Michael. I don't want to get into the gay straight thing. Um, you see, it's kind of hard to multiply and fill the earth if you aren't having children. But it's okay, Michael. Hi, Circle K. Our discussion is already beginning to devolve. Anyway, as Michael Heiser puts it, he's a scholar, not a preacher, although he preaches. Um, the kingdom of heaven is already, but not yet. It's already here, but not yet, because time binds us to this world. Glad you could make time today, huh? Okay, we've got Strontium and Oswald and Dave and Circle K. Let's see, Oswald is Joseph. Oh, and we've got Michael in all Greek letters, and I think Timothy's still here. Yeah, well, let's take time. Vaping is not the same, but it's cheaper because I already own it. Don't have to go buy anything. Anyway, Timothy, to see the world in a grain of sand and heaven in a wildflower. I believe that's, yeah, William Blake. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. Well, they say that to God, one day is the same as 1,000 years. Philip K. Dick talked about orthogonal time, a fancy word for perpendicular at right angles. That there's a form of time that isn't forward and backward or even in a loop, but above our timeline and able to reach down and cross through it. And that God lives perpendicular to our timeline and can intervene at any point, even if you and I in the year 2020 are still moving forward and unable to go backward. God can go back to any time he wants. AD, BC, he can go to the Middle Ages and, I don't know, make someone else win the 100 Years' War. He can go back to ancient Rome and stop them from stoning Stephen. There's a beautiful song by the Grateful Dead called Saint Stephen. I don't remember much of it, but it starts out Saint Stephen with a rose, in and out of the garden he goes. And if I remember correctly, it's an entire side of an LP. Remember those 33 and a third RPM vinyl LP records that you played on a stereo or a record player? You put them on the turntable. That means it would be 15 or 20 minutes. Yeah, time really is relative. It's like last week I missed an entire day. It went from Tuesday to Friday, and I missed Wednesday. I was here, I'm sure, but had no memory of it until I tried to get the seniors discount that the hardware store offers on Wednesday, but it was Thursday. Whoops. Phil loved the Grateful Dead. I still have a record player and a few records. Ah, time is a figment of human perception. That's a great insight, Oswald, Joseph. Uh, at age 15, you thought you were a philosopher. Well, we're all philosophers in the sense that we love wisdom. Phil, love. Sophia, wisdom. But time in the Big Bang Theory or the atom theory of Democritus and Epicurus, time did not exist before there was at least one object in the universe. Before the Big Bang, there was no time. It's kind of like gravity. We can describe it and formulate laws about how it works. We can make clocks. We can describe how an object falls due to gravity. It accelerates at 33 feet per second every second. Um, anyway, but we don't know what they are. We don't know what time is. We don't know what gravity is. Well, I kind of think animals and plants do obey the laws of time and causality, although, oh, Circle K, you must at least go to YouTube and listen to some Grateful Dead. They were originally a country band, and they're I don't know what, you can't call their more recent music rock and roll either. I don't know what to call it. It was not just pop. It wasn't, it was kind of soulful. Maybe it was soul with a bit of jazz tossed in. Circle K is always dancing with the family. Well, Circle K, just find music that you like. That's the one thing I hate the most about mom. I'm not supposed to hate her, but I want to. She deprived me of music. For example, on my 16th birthday, my older brother got me a little 45, a vinyl record of Neil Sedaka singing Happy Birthday, Sweet 16. Mom would not allow me to put it on the record player and play it. I don't want to hear that rock and roll. I hate her. Well, okay, I hated her then. As a Christian, I'm not supposed to, but I'm angry. Well, not long after that, while I was at school, Mom went through my room, found the record, and threw it in the trash, and I never saw it again. And at that time, I owned one record album, Johnny Cash at San Quentin. She wouldn't let me play that while she was in the house. Evil woman. So find music that you like, music that you love, and let it fill your soul. It doesn't have to be Grateful Dead. Oh, well, I went to one Dead concert. I didn't actually have a ticket to the concert, but I had a car full of my son and his friends, and we had enough tickets to get through the gate, but not enough for me to go to the concert. But I did eat a blue mushroom there. It was back when they let you camp. It wasn't a parking lot at all. It was Laguna Seca, a part of a military base on the ocean in Santa Barbara County. I woke up in the morning and I looked and said, "It's raining." And someone said, "No, it just does that here." So I said, "Okay, there's water falling from the sky." Now, drug use, well, I ate the blue mushrooms once there while buying food and such from people who were tailgating. And one other time in my life, I ate a blue mushroom. Didn't know it was illegal. And it's the statute of limitation has told, so you can't get me arrested. Well, if you eat a blue mushroom, if you take any kind of hallucinogen, do not look in the mirror. Just take my word for it. Don't do it. Ah, if I hadn't suddenly realized, oh, I just ate a blue mushroom, I might have gone insane. '80s and '70s strontium. I still like the old '50s and '60s stuff too. I like Everly Brothers. I like the Kingston Trio, Johnny Mathis, the Platters, Gladys Knight and the Pips, the Supremes, Diana Ross, even Michael Jackson. Look what taking drugs did for him, and he had a doctor. Led Zeppelin. I always, oh, I like the Moody Blues too. And of course, Led Zeppelin, Stairway to Heaven. Grateful Dead went on a bus trip with Neil Cassidy. Timothy tells us Neil Cassidy, as Dean Moriarty in On the Road, kept saying, "But we know time, Sal, we know time." And Oswald, then again, there are people who think all music besides Western classical music is satanic. Yeah, well, Mom thought that the jungle beat of rock and roll music would turn me into a blankety blank, turn my skin black and my hair kinky. She never told us, died without revealing that Dad's father was passing for white and his father couldn't pass. Dad knew it too, and when my older and smarter brother found this information while pursuing our family tree, Dad did not deny it and kind of just shrugged it off like it isn't important. Well, it was to Mom because she was a racist. All kinds of things that she said and did make more sense when I know that she considered her own children to be of an inferior race. So I'm angry. But I get over it. And I feel sorry for her, and I even pray for her soul. I almost said some bad words. I like, well, we used to call it something kickin', country music. um, I grew up not knowing that the S word was bad and you should say crap. Oh, I love the old hymns. I joined the school choir, the Sunday school choir. Um, wasn't old enough to get into the church choir, and Mom was not happy because she'd become an atheist when the end of the world failed to come. She'd gotten into the Four Square Gospel, which is Amy Semple McPherson's End of the World cult. Well, the world doesn't end. God's making a new heavens and a new earth out of what we've got here. The whole concept of the end of the world and Armageddon and all that is horse pucky. But I do love the hymns I learned in the Sunday school choir and the school choir. School choir, we mostly did Christmas songs. I loved music let's see, I was about 8 years old when I started learning violin. Um, in seventh grade, so I would have been 12, I joined the school orchestra, and Mom was ticked off because we had to go on field trips as an orchestra, and she didn't want to bother to come pick me up afterward. She actually punished me for going to the district competition where our little junior high orchestra beat all but one of the high schools because that high school had our graduates. We had the best orchestra teacher. Bill Cook was a saint. And then in at other schools, another school, I switched to the cello because it was easier. And I wasn't that good on the violin. I wasn't good enough, and they didn't have someone on cello. So I switched to cello, and my best friend, Shari, switched to the double bass, the hulking thing. Well, I don't know about cherubim, Michael. Cherubim are actually bird like creatures, and they're the same thing as seraphim. Cherub is um, the word they use in Aramaic and related languages of the Holy Land, and seraph was the Egyptian word for the same thing. They guard God's throne. But the last trump or trumpet is on the Feast of the Trumpets. Comes around about September, whatever. It's part of the Rosh Hashanah, Feast of the Trumpets, is part of the series of holidays that have include Yom Kippur, the atonement. You say, "I'm sorry for my sins," really, and you better mean it, because that's almost certainly when Christ will return and kick out all the demons. Oh, back to Armageddon, the final battle, blood up to the horses' bridles. It isn't in the Valley of Megiddo. The we have more manuscripts than they had 100 years ago. There was this thing called Dead Sea Scrolls, and there are other finds of ancient manuscripts. And the translators have found that Armageddon is not the Valley of Megiddo, it's a mountain. There's no mountain in Megiddo. It probably refers to good old Mount Hermon. Typing, now talking. That's where the bad angels came down and decided to marry human women and caused the Noah's flood. And speaking of such, Genesis chapter 6 goes on to say there were Nephilim in the earth in those days. Nephilim means giants, and some people say it means fallen ones, but I think it's a pun. It means giants and fallen ones. But it doesn't really say that the Nephilim are the children of the bad angels who mated with human women. It's possible that the Nephilim were in the earth in those days just because they were there at that time, and that the children of the sons of God might also have been giants. The book of Enoch, or First Enoch, says they were, but that doesn't mean they were the Nephilim. Okay, let's see. Strontium tells us Nietzsche calls it slave mentality or something like that. Living with the mentality of a slave who believes they will be avenged and liberated someday. He rejects that notion. Yeah, well, Phil said Nietzsche was so depressing that he really shouldn't read any more Nietzsche, and then he picked up a book about Nietzsche and started reading. Uh, Nietzsche said a lot of things. The best slaves, are those who don't know they're enslaved. They don't rebel because they think they're free. Well, I don't look for a future. Yes, the standard traditional concept and translation, Strontium, says that Armageddon was named after Megiddo in Israel. That's before we had more manuscripts and better scholarship digging into it, and they found out that it doesn't really say Megiddo in the Hebrew. You see, most of the New Testament is written in Greek. But I don't want to, I'm going to have to search for it. Let's see, Revelation, Armageddon. It really doesn't say Armageddon, it says Har Moed. Here we go. Revelation chapter 16. I'll just pop this in. Yeah, someone's making a fuss over us humans, yes. And let's see. Let's find out which verse it has Armageddon. Okay, Control F A R M A. Here we go. Verse 13. So I'll pop that in the chat room. Verse 13. Okay. Verse it isn't 13. Well, yeah, I'll start with 13. It goes through 16. So I'll type that too, through verse 16. Armageddon. And I saw coming out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet, 3 unclean spirits like frogs. For they are demonic spirits performing signs, who go abroad to the kings of the whole world to assemble them for battle on the great day of God the Almighty. Behold, I am coming like a thief. Blessed is the one who stays awake, keeping his garments on, so that he may not go about naked and be seen exposed. And they assembled them at a place that in Hebrew is called Armageddon. Well, see, that's the problem. It isn't Greek. Even though John is writing in Greek, it says in Hebrew. And the Hebrew in the old manuscripts, of course, that word Armageddon is written in Hebrew. And it's not a G. It isn't Har Megiddo, which is a valley of Megiddo. I spelled something wrong. Here we go. But it actually says Harmo. I'm not really, I'm spelling this phonetically. Harmoed. The G in the Hebrew is not our G. It's another letter. It's kind of G, very soft. So it's Moed or Moed. And it means mountain. And it probably means Mount Hermon. Har by itself would mean valley, but here it's Hermon. Vowels get changed all the time. Anyway, that's at the end of time, but what does the end of time mean? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Har equals mountain, but Megiddo is a valley and does not have any mountains. You see, they used to think that Har was R without the H. They used to think that it said Valley of Megiddo. And they left the H off. Armageddon, Valley of Megiddo. And that presents a big problem if it means mountain. Because Megiddo doesn't have any mountains. Anyway, that's what they thought. Yes. So anyway, it makes more sense. But supposedly this has already happened. And we're still here, and the earth is still here. I haven't seen any dead bodies rising from the grave, but I think that must be a metaphor. Even though there's a tradition that when when Jesus was killed on the cross, some dead bodies started rising from their graves and walking around in Rome. Uh, I don't know enough to say whether that's a credible story, but I've been told that some of the Roman historians did note that. Maybe Herodotus talked about it. I don't know. Haven't looked into it. It's too weird even for me. But if they did rise from the graves, people would freak out. No, Har Har never meant valley, but translators to English thought it did. Har always meant mountain. But see how they left the H off? Armageddon? Different word. And I don't know enough Hebrew to go beyond that. Let's just say the translators of the late 1800s and early 1900s weren't that good, and they didn't have enough manuscripts to really check. So anyway, um, Armageddon is, at pretty much the end of time when all the evil demons are cast into the lake of fire. And by the way, it doesn't really say that people will be cast into the lake of fire. Yeah, Jesus will separate the goats from the sheep, but it doesn't say that the goats go into the lake of fire. The ideas about hell that we have today really come from Dante, Milton, even William Blake to some extent, but primarily Dante's Inferno. And it's really not in the Bible. When things are thrown into the lake of fire, they don't burn forever. They burn completely and they're gone forever. Oh well, I gotta take a quick break because I've been drinking coffee and water. But I will be back, so hang on. I don't have any hold music to play for you, but I'll be back. right. It is time to talk about time. Oh, my kitty cat is hungry. My outside kitty cat, who refuses to come in, is hungry. Which same lamp did you used to have, Michael? Tora's doing fine, Oswald. It's Sweetie, the outside kitty, who refuses to come in. She's at the door looking hungry. Let me get her something to eat. Hi, Sweetie. I'm sorry, kitty cat. You need more food, don't you? Come on. Dishes. Hang on, kid. I don't have a dish for her. No, you stay put, Tora. This is for Sweetie. Ah. All right, stay in the house. You don't get to go out. No, you don't. I woke up poor little Tora because she heard cat food, canned cat food. Okay, the hanging lamp. Oh, well, it's kind of in the dark here, but it's blue and it's very 1960s. There you go. I'm out of the way. The lamp is behind me. Yeah, it's a swag lamp. I'm going to yard sale it because my ceiling in this room is way high. It's what they call a cathedral ceiling, so it's like 12 feet up, 10 or 12 feet, and it already has a ceiling lamp. So I'm going to yard sale the swag lamp. It's woven rattan or I don't see either wicker or rattan. I think it's actual rattan. See, wicker is like a woven plant material. Rattan is a specific kind of plant material that's woven. Anyway, it's either wicker or rattan woven. You can't see the little holes from that distance on this camera. Circle K doesn't misses playing in the garden. Oh, you have a rockin' plastic yard? Well, I recommend potted plants. It's kind of it isn't navy blue, it's more of a cobalt blue. Okay. Anyway, um, having that lamp hanging from what's basically a support for a shelf sticking out of the wall just doesn't do much for me. Uh, dear, I do believe that Oswald is quoting Wordsworth or else a woman poet. Not sure. Or maybe he wrote it himself. The Lord into his garden comes. The spices yield a rich perfume. Ah. Hmm. Okay. Ah, sorry, I'm tired. It's a song. Okay, let's see. Who wrote the hymn, The Lord into His? Don't you just love Google, Bing, and all those search engines? Apparently it's a folk song. Nobody wrote it. No, or nobody knows. It's in the, oh, it's a Mormon hymn. Well, it's in the hymn book of the Church of Jesus Christ. So, uh, it's in Latter-day Saints and other people's. Oh, it was written by Isaac Watts, a clerk of Oxford. How about that? Here you can find all the lyrics because there's more to it. Oh, in England they say Clark, but they spell it clerk. No, that's not the same. It isn't the same. Oh, yes, it is. It's just not the first verse. And it's different. So apparently he took that folk hymn and changed it and wrote this hymn. Hi, Evie. The link goes to, let's see, the link goes to a similar hymn to a Imilhy. Oh, come on. Come on. Evie, I'm tired. I did about an hour earlier, and I'm done another hour on part 2 here. Wow. And we were talking about time. Ooh, it's getting cold. The snow isn't quite sticking, but I'm sure that it will. Uh, I don't know if any of you remember, but in like the late 1980s, early 1990s, the former Dodgers pitcher Don Drysdale was selling pool covers for your swimming pool to promote safety. You can't fall into the pool when it's covered, and energy savings because it keeps in the heat in the water. And he always said, a clean, warm, and safe pool. And we always said, we just want the clean, warm, you can keep the pool. I sometimes rant about the media. For example, comfortable has 4 syllables. It is not comfortable. If you're just a regular person and just talking, that's fine. But when you're paid to be on the TV or the radio and read a teleprompter or a script, especially radio where nobody can see you. So it's able to comfort, basically able to comfort, comfortable. And interesting also has 4 syllables. It is not interesting. But once again, if you're just a normal person, a regular person, just talking, just having a conversation, I'm made able to, one word, able to. Uh, that's okay. You aren't paid to sit there and talk. Neither am I, come to think of it. Maybe someday. But we were talking about time, I think. The Lord walks in the Garden of Eden. The garden, I'm sure Eden is just an English corruption of what it was really called in Hebrew, but as I said before, my Hebrew is almost non existent. Anyway, this hymn that I linked is almost the same as what you quoted, Oswald. The Lord is in the Garden of Eden now, and you know how the cherubim had flaming swords to keep the way of the garden after Adam and Eve were kicked out? Now, it's not to keep us out, it's to make sure we can get back. They're keeping the way open so the devil can't shut the gate. The thing is, kicking us out of the garden was a kindness because once we sinned, just like Moses and all the other prophets and so forth of the Old Testament and Abraham, if we saw God face to face, it would kill us because we're fallen. Ooh. Well, Oswald, you're allowed to post links here. Ah, awesome. Good performance if you want to listen later. Time, I don't know. Time is so subjective. When I'm waiting, 5 minutes will seem like an hour. When I'm having fun, an hour goes by in 5 minutes. Now, that's, of course, our perception of time, but that's all we have is our perception. Of course, if you have a clock ticking away, especially the atomic clock in Denver, Colorado, that keeps universal time, although I heard they just made a better one, time can be measured precisely. And even though I felt I was having fun for only 5 minutes, you can show me objectively that it was an hour. Or when I think I waited all day for something, you can show me objectively that it was 45 minutes. Chronic deja vu, that's kind of, I like that, Oswald. Um, you know, objectively, yeah, time can be measured in terms of the relative motion between two or more objects, or the, well, in the atomic clock, it's the decay of a radioactive substance, but that is motion. It emits a particle. That's how uranium turns into lead eventually through a long and complex process. Thorium, too, or as well or also. Oh, you know what? I'm not sure about twinkling, but moment actually has a meaning. I always thought a moment was faster than a minute. I'd say just a moment, and so someone would wait. I looked it up for a definition in the dictionary, and a moment is 90 seconds. That's a minute and a half. 10 seconds behind a "My child is an honor student" bumper sticker. Car at a stoplight will feel like an eon every time. Interesting. Well, time cannot be measured without relative motion between two or more objects. So before we have objects in the universe, by that definition, time did not exist. Time, to Phil's mind, was a way of measuring entropy or entropy itself. If time equals entropy, then the march of time and getting old and dying and things rotting and decaying really is an illustration of entropy. So entropy is a force. I can talk on the internet for any amount of time and it goes by in an instant, huh? By the way, Oswald, were you on Walter Bosley's channel last Sunday? I posted in the chat, but nobody seemed to see me. I felt invisible. Oh, Timothy listened to Groundhog Day. Yeah, Groundhog Day is in a way about time, a time loop. Oh, I hate it when my hair hits my face. It feels like there's a bug. I'm not scared of bugs, I just don't like them crawling on me. Yeah. Well, anyway, Walter went past 9 o'clock, so I thought he forgot to pick up his kid, but apparently his kid had a ride. I don't know. Anyway, Tora, did you want to come say hi to the folks? Look at the kitty cat. Oh man. When I first rescued her, she was about half the difference from day to day, but it's getting harder and harder to pick her up. Say hi to the folks. Yeah. See? There's a kitty on the computer. Says, "Get me away from that other cat. You have no business looking at another cat." She wants, of course, the pretty red light, the dot, the laser light. I don't know what this does to the screen when I do that. Get it, Tora. Get it. It's got your paw. It's got both your paws. It's got your tail. Says, "What am I, a dog? I don't chase my tail." Okay. She will quite literally climb the wall going after this thing. She thinks I should do this all day, but I'm getting carpal tunnel from uh, waving the red dot for her. You heard my question on the Dark Journalist. Heard or saw? Oh, X series. Yeah, well, Dark Journalist keeps promising to have me on, but I don't think he's ever going to finish the X series, so he really ought to consider my work in progress, the X in exegesis. Uh, it's the same cigarette. I have to keep relighting it. I'm not chain smoking, honest. But my water's empty. Look out, Tora. Yeah, I know. You need more time with the red dot. Okay. Kitties. Oh, cats. So anyway, yeah, I think cats and dogs, they have such short lives. Okay. I thought I waved the red light long enough. You want your little red dot? Okay. She's a sweet little thing, but she's also vicious and aggressive with her catnip mice. But she's timid and shy in some ways while she's. It keeps her happy and it keeps her in the house. She's been spayed. It's been a little over 2 weeks, but I don't want to let her out. It snows here and there are wild animals like mountain lions and bobcats and raccoons, bears, various squirrels. I'll tell you a funny one. One day, Blackie Kitty, or what? Oh, I think it was Inky, Blackie's sister. Yeah, Inky Kitty came into the house with a chipmunk by the neck. She put it down. Bad move. I was looking for a towel so I could grab the chipmunk and save it and, wrap it in the towel and toss it outside. There was no need. That little chipmunk stood up, bit Inky on the nose, and ran outside. Chipmunk 1, cat 0. Beautiful eyes. You hear that, Tora? You have beautiful eyes. Yeah, you do, sweetie. Tora means little tiger in Japanese. That's what I'm told. Yeah. Well, anyway, time is in some ways equivalent to entropy. Now, perhaps it goes in a loop, starting with the Big Bang that creates everything, and then looping back to the big crunch that annihilates everything. Or maybe the expansion of the universe never stops and we experience heat death, which is really cold death. Oh dear. Yes, but you know how Blake spelled tiger with a Y. Took a whole semester, well, a term, a 14-week term, studying William Blake. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night. Now listen carefully. What immortal hand or E, not I, E, did frame thy fearful symmetry? And yeah, later on it changes to dare frame thy fearful symmetry. It's okay. Children's books often have it spelled with an I. And then, of course, there's the little lamb, and of course, we don't memorize that one nearly as well. Little, oh, come on, spacebar, please. Lamb, who made thee? And then my memory goes blank. But it's a pair of poems. Lamb and tiger go together. My computer's making strange noises, but I think it's just because it doesn't want to recognize the mouse, the USB port mouse, the real mouse, because I cannot manage with the mouse pad. I just can't do it. You heard that the Schumann resonance is increasing. Personally, I'm beginning to feel it. If I remember correctly, the Schumann resonance is the electrical frequency of the Earth, which for some reason matches the frequency of our brains. Roger Penrose. Oh, that reminds me. Thank you, Timothy. Um, I'm knowledgeable in the things I know, but I have huge gaps in my knowledge. I'm trying to fill them. Oh, Michael has something interesting. He thinks that in the remake of the Time Machine, they used the idea that time sped up where the geology changes. Well, apparently, clocks on top of mountains run, I think it's slower than clocks in the flatland. I know that if you take a clock on a jet and fly around the world at like Mach 2 or something, the clock will run more slowly. But gravity does affect clocks, even atomic clocks. Hmm. Anyway, gravity and time seem to be bound together. And we don't know what gravity is, and we don't know what time is. Our best guess with time is that it's equivalent to entropy, but gravity? Well, Einstein said it that objects have gravity because they cause a dent in space time, in the four dimensions of space time, so things just naturally fall toward them. Oh, don't get me on flat earthers. There was a time when the church thought the Bible said the earth was flat, but they changed their minds. The scripture is inerrant, but we have to interpret it, and we might be mistaken in our interpretation. Anyway, gravity, who knows? Nobody really knows what it is. But it holds things together pretty well and it keeps us from flying off the earth while it spins on its axis. You see, the Bible records what people saw. They saw the sun hold still in the sky. It's a perfectly valid description of what they saw when Joshua needed a little, a few more hours of daylight to win his battle. He didn't fight at night, except what's his name did, Gideon. He surprised the enemy while they were asleep in their tents. Nobody fought at night, they slept at night. Anyway, we still say the sun rises and the sun sets, the moon rises and sets, without going into a big old scientific explanation of how the earth is spinning on its axis and the moon is orbiting the earth and all that. We describe what we see. Now, my yard and the road out front look relatively flat, but the earth doesn't have to be flat to create that perception. And I see the sun rise. Perfectly valid. It doesn't mean that the sun is moving. It means that's what I see. Huh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's right. Gravity tends to slow down time. So where time flows the slowest. And supposedly, if we could produce enough gravity or get close to a black hole without dying, or falling in. I don't think the word time came from Tiamat, but I'll look into that, Oswald. Supposedly we could travel across the universe in an instant. Do you know that not that long ago, less than 200 years ago, I think less than 150 years ago, less than 100 perhaps, or close to 100 years ago, scientists, astronomers believed that the Milky Way was the whole universe. There was nothing else until what's his name? Uh, Not Humboldt. I've forgotten his name. This astronomer found out that Andromeda is a galaxy and not just a fuzzy little cloud. He had a better telescope. And along the course of the 20th, Hubble, thank you, Strontium. Edwin Hubble discovered that not only are there other galaxies, but they're moving away from us. Yes, a geodesic dome is made of flat surfaces. Right. Okay, let's see. As long as we're back on time, word origin time. Of Germanic, ah, time and tide. Remember that little expression? The English word time apparently comes from the Germanic word tima, which means tide. This one's the word clock, not helpful. When was the word time first used? First recorded in the late 14th century. Personified. Oh, an abstract sense of time. In the personified since at least 1509 as an aged bald man carrying a scythe and an hourglass. Who created the concept of time? Hipparchus and other Greek astronomers employed astronomical techniques that were previously developed by the Babylonians who resided in Mesopotamia. And the Babylonians inherited their system of measuring time from the Sumerians. Okay, I don't think anyone discovered I'm sure time and Tiamat are related words, but I'm not convinced that time is named after Tiamat. I'll look into it further later at my leisure. But time, we don't know what it is. We can describe it and measure its progress and talk about time loops and time tunnels and so forth. Time can speed up or slow down, at least from our subjective point of view. Our measurement of time can speed up and slow down depending upon how fast we're traveling. Time is an ocean, but it ends at the shore. I don't know who wrote that, but it sounds cool, Timothy. Uh, and in Philip K. Dick novels, time can really get messed up, and I don't remember which novel it was. But the copy editor who was looking at his book manuscript wrote back that he had 2 Thursdays in the week. And Phil looked at it thinking he could fix it, and he realized that the whole plot would fall apart if he did not have 2 Thursdays, one after the other. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Thursday, Friday. So he said, "Well, we're going to have to leave it, and people will just think that's another one of those weird things that I write about." So one of his books has 2 Thursdays in the same week. Kind of a deja vu experience. I've had deja vu that really spooked me. Didn't really care for deja vu. And it wasn't like someone said these words and then I thought I've heard them before. It was like I mentally heard them saying these words, and a split second later they said them, word for word. Or I pictured something, usually something bad, happening, and before I could do anything about it, it happened. Oh, the time tunnel. My baby sister, who was like 3 or 4 when that was on TV, she called it Tony and Duck. The two main characters were Tony and Doug. And she loved Family Affair with Brian Keith ending up with his niece and nephew because their parents died. Let's see, what did she call that one? She called it by the names of the two children, and I forgot their names. Yeah, Oswald, I gotta go soon. Thank you for coming by. And let's see, jamais vu. Let's see, jamais. I think that does that mean I have? Okay. Translate jamais. Jamaican. Evil spell checker. Vu. Never seen. All right. Jamais means never? I thought it. Oh, I was thinking it was like a compound word. Je aime. That would mean I love. Jamais is never. Well, there are things we can't see, but we believe they're real. Deja vu itself isn't bad, but when I have an intuition about something bad and then it happens, that bothers me. If it were something good like chocolate, deja vu would be very nice. I could enjoy my chocolate or have my cake and eat it too. Anyway, I am winding down and I'm gonna have to go because there are other things to do on this snowy day. Let me see. The ground isn't white yet, but it is falling. It's just melting because it isn't quite cold enough. You see, the atmosphere where the clouds are is cold enough to make snow, but down here near the ground, the air is too warm to keep it frozen. Ah, Tim, that's interesting. Jamais vu is when something familiar seems unknown. That's happened to me. Circle K, premonitions are bad. There's a movie, I think it's called Premonition, about a woman who has premonitions. I have it on videotape, not even DVD. I have it somewhere around here. This woman keeps having premonitions and they come true and they're usually bad. Let's see. Let's see if I can find that before I run out of steam. Yeah, Sandra Bullock. Let's get the plot summary. If I want to specifically find a movie, I always add in the search terms IMDb, Internet Movie Database. A depressed woman learns that her husband was killed in a car accident the previous day, then awakens the next morning to find him alive and well at home, then awakens the day after that to find that he's dead. And of course, everyone thinks she's nuts. You gave up painting because of premonitions? That's interesting. Oh, I'm going to show you my painting. It's already sold. But now, it was originally acrylic on canvas, and I did it at a paint party where the this real artist has a bunch of people come and copy her painting, and I never make it really a copy of hers, but this one came close. But I've since added glitter and colored sand, and here it is. Let's see if I can get the whole thing in there. There. Can't really see the glitter in the sky on this camera. Here's the close-ups. Cactus and century plant in the desert. You can't see that I signed it. Maybe I should put, yeah, you can see it. Anyway, it's already sold. I painted this in May 2019, but I've fiddled with it since then. And a friend helped with the glitter. But I did the colored sand. The streaks of brown are sand. I might sell more paintings. I have one that needs more work. Oh, you dumped your scratching stool. Silly. Anyway, I'll show them to you when they're more ready. Yeah, it's kind of impressionist. What happens to me is I'm no good with perspective. Foreshortening to my mind is a dirty word because I don't have stereo vision. Well, thank you, Evie. Maybe I'll do a. The other two are not ready, but I'll show them to you before I conk out and take a nap or get something done like get lunch or do the dishes or both. I have only two others that I can show you, and neither is actually finished. But I like the multimedia approach. But I want to get back to oil painting at home. Hang on, I'll get the other two. All right, get that. You're such a sweetie pie. Now, this one, I'm going to add texture with paint using a stencil. It's supposed to look like a Navajo rug. And what I'm going to do is take the sheets of, I guess you could call it fabric that you make needlepoint with, so it's like a grid, and lay it over the painting, and then add paint through the fabric to make it more like a woven rug. I have done watercolors, Evie, but I really love oil paints. So the desert's a bit like Edvard Munch or Bosch. But this next one, I'm kind of emotionally attached to. I'm not sure that I'll ever sell it. It's inspired by, but obviously not a copy of, Starry Night by Van Gogh. We often call him Van Gogh, but he was Van Gogh in his own language. I call it snowy. Oh, I called it daffodil, but I want to call it snowy afternoon. We were Now this was also from a paint party, but mine is nothing like the example. It had the daffodils standing up vertically with solid yellow flowers, and I decided to make a narcissus. Now there is glitter on this, but it's hard to tell on my camera. But it's sort of Starry Night, and I have to do more with the sun. It isn't finished. That blue ring around it is glitter. Anyway, those are my two other paintings, and I'm going to make more on my own. David Lynch paints? Really? Looks Fauvist, huh? I really love oil paints. I know they kind of stink and make a mess, so I have to wait until the weather is warmer and more dry so I can do oil painting outdoors. My house is so tiny that the turpentine and other um, vapors would build up and make me ill. Huh. Well, yeah, I that's an idea. Now I've already sold that actual painting, but I don't even like the one of the desert. But I will make prints of it as soon as I get a good image of it. Ah, that's very interesting. David Lynch wanted to be a painter. I guess he found out that artists live in poverty. Wow. Transcendental meditation. Let's put these away. And that's enough for now. Maybe I'll do a session where I set up an easel and show you how I paint, but I never finish a work in one session, or certainly not in one day. I need time to let it sink in so I come up with ideas. No one knew Andy Warhol was a devout Catholic. Mass every morning, huh? And he was what they call an odd egg or something like that. I'm trying to come up with British slang. Yeah, do a painting stream. I can be Bob Ross. Is he still alive? One of the desert is very good. Well, I don't like it personally, so I'm not averse to selling it. The daffodil one with the sky, that one has meaning to me. I might never sell it. Wow. I need chocolate and peppermint. I had some peppermint. Hmm. I don't know what I need more, chocolate or a nap. But I do need to get lunch and wash the dishes too. Did I eat all my peppermint? No. I have a little bit left of the former candy cane. Tiny bit left. Oh. Well, anyway, maybe we'll talk again about time as I delve more into Phil's exegesis. He has a lot to say about it, like the logos or Yuvik reaching down into our time and fixing things and adding energy so we're kind of wound up like little clocks. Yeah, what I really love is those Andes mints. They're chocolate and mint, the best of both worlds. Ooh, wow. It's almost midnight in Northern Ireland. Oh, you think Lynch might have been raised Catholic? That's perceptive, Tim. He might have been. I'm thinking of Laura Palmer, Twin Peaks. Wow. I didn't like the way the was it the movie or the final episode? I think it was the movie explained who killed Laura Palmer. It was didn't didn't like it at all. Yes, Tim, it creme de menthe, but in um, America, where people are not as well educated, they call them Andes mints, like the mountains, the Andes, those mountains in South America. Good to see you, Circle K, and everybody else, and thank you all for listening to my weird ramblings. Come on, I need to type that. Thank you all for listening, and have a great evening. Great is not spelled that way, it's a typo. Here we go. And Tim, sleep well, pleasant dreams. Here we go.